Hello and welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. I'm Brittany. I'm the Seeker.
And I am Jonathan. I guess that makes me the skeptic.
Today we have a very exciting interview with my sister, Erin. As I mentioned before in our first episode, she has experienced quite a bit of paranormal phenomenon. So I'm really excited to talk to her and get her take on everything. So, Erin describes herself as a recovering award-winning journalist and business mommy for her lapidary business that she has with her besties, Liz and Mike, Stones and Homegrowns on Crystal Creek. And she lives in the magical state of Maine with her friends and wonderful fur babies. Erin has had a long and difficult road the last few years, but she is a fighter and has incredible resiliency. She went through significant health issues and surgeries for her ulcerative colitis at the same time she was losing her partner in twin flame, Phil. Erin and Phil's connection remains strong even though he has passed. She's definitely a seeker on her own healing and self-discovery journey. So welcome to the show, sister. We're so glad to have you. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm doing okay today. You know, I had some acupuncture earlier and we went foraging for some mushrooms for dinner, and that helped with all the other craziness that's been going on lately. So
Yeah, living your best Maine life today.
that's right. Doing my best over here, Magical Maine.
So some people might wonder why you call yourself a recovering award-winning journalist. Why do you say you're recovering?
Because, well, since the pandemic happened and I was still working as a freelance writer for the Sun Journal in the Advertiser Democrat here in Maine. And then, they laid off, quote unquote, they're freelance people because things were going crazy. But I mean, I worked as a journalist for 13 years, and I saw and reported on a lot of crazy things. And I think that the past few years have been really tough for a lot of people. And I can't be inundated in the news like 24/7 anymore. So that's why when we watch the news, we usually watch these guys who, put comedy into it and, report. I mean, they use reputable sources that they're citing and everything. And we used to watch Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers and all those comedians, but since everyone's been on strike, uh, we haven't been getting as much. But I understand because they need to fight the good fight and get paid what they're worth, all of them. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's probably long-winded, but there you go.
Yeah, you just need that mental space and watching it in a way where it's a little less
Like,
heavy.
a little more lighthearted, where you can laugh at the absurdity of all the madness that's happening in this country and
Hmm.
around the world. And
For
that's how I
sure.
dealt with it when I was working as a journalist full time. It wasn't just me, my coworkers too. Just like joking around, making inappropriate jokes because you're talking about stuff about like an 8-year-old girl being murdered by possibly her stepbrother, kind of thing. Living in a house of horrors and filth. Like, it's sad what some people got to deal with. You know,
Yeah,
and I'm grateful for what I have here, and I like to just kind of keep it on a even keel as much as I can.
for sure. So you have had a lot of experiences pretty much your entire life with paranormal things. So walk us through that. How did it all begin?
I was thinking about this since, preparing for this and trying to go down memory lane with, when I first noticed things. I don't remember stuff from the old house, which I still call the old house, even though my parents moved into the house that they're still in, when I was 4 and Brittany was only 2. So, but the old house, I don't remember a lot happening there, but I remember in the new house, the one out in Minetto, the ghetto of Minetto in New York. Uh, I would say probably, 4 when we moved in. I remember hearing footsteps coming up the basement stairs, walking down the hallway, just kind of feeling presences of somebody being there, somebody watching, and everything. But then the thing that really stood out to me, obviously, would be seeing a little ghost girl who I called the little green girl because she was transparent looking, kind of see through. She would be sitting in the corner of my bedroom, usually with her knees pulled up to her chest, sometimes with her head down. I feel like one time I watched her, like, it looked like she was reading a book kind of thing. And um, after that started happening, which, I'm kind of a little fuzzy on exactly when, but I remember telling mom about it because when I would get freaked out, I would sleep in mom and dad's room before you and I started sleeping together because of the paranormal activity that we were both experiencing, and she told me I was reading too many scary stories, which I was, because do you remember reading the scary stories to tell in
Mm-hmm.
the dark across the
Yeah,
street at the little park? I can't even remember who that chick's name was, but
me
she was
either.
older than us. And the Me Fifofi Walker story stuck with me. The Harold the Scarecrow story stuck with me and freaked me out. So yeah, she was right about that. But as I feel like we've learned, more than one thing can be true at the same time or simultaneously happening. So yes, I was being read scary stories,
Mm-hmm.
but I was experiencing real scary stories in our house. And um I remember at one point I don't remember if I saw her again or if I heard the guy I think it was a guy. We always called him the dad. I don't know if he actually was the dad, but he was like a male presence. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I heard footsteps or what, but I went into mom and dad's room in the middle of the night and was like, can I sleep here? And I lied and I said, worried about my spelling test, which I guess it wasn't really that much of a lie because I wasn't very good at spelling, even though I wrote for a living for many years. But this was in second grade. I remember that part.
Mm-hmm.
So how old are you in second grade? Like 6, 7, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Seven-ish, I'd say. Seven-ish.
Yeah, 7-ish. I
Yeah.
think that's a good way of putting it. So anyways, that's when yeah, I started lying to mom saying, well, I I'm worried about my spelling test. Can I please sleep on on the
Mm-hmm.
floor of your room? And she let me. But yeah, that's when it started. But after not being believed, which is a theme that I've experienced a lot through my life, not just with like the ghost stuff or paranormal or whatever, but also like with medical things
Mm-hmm.
and people, not believing it. So, anyways, after not being believed, I feel like I just kind of like stuffed it down and didn't really think about it. Didn't, try to ignore it if stuff happened until um when I was a teenager and I saw the little green girl again when I was 13 and that's when I remembered everything basically. I don't know if you want to talk that story if you had other questions before I
No,
went.
yeah. Tell us about that. What happened when you were
Okay.
13?
Well, I'll just leave people's names out. But I had a friend over who was a friend at the time in eighth grade. I think it was winter break. It was one of our breaks from school, and she was spending the night. And we'd gone to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I looked over in the corner of my room and I saw the little girl sitting there, like I described before, with her legs pulled up to her chest, her arms kind of like crossed over, full like this, and her head down. She was wearing like a long sleeved nightgown that had like ruffles at the end of the, the sleeves, something that's kind of, they would say period, but I would say late 17, sometime in the 1800s. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what, I kind of got like early settler vibes from her sort of thing. But anyways, and she had like what looked like long blonde hair, but it looked green with her being transparent and my walls being painted green. And so I woke up in the middle of the night, I looked over and I saw her and I started shaking my friend and calling her name and I'm asking her, I'm like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? I don't know if you gotta do the F bombs on her or not, but that's what I was saying. And I was like, I'm like, what is that? And she just kind of grumbled at me, was like, "Arr," and I was like, oh God. And I'm like, okay. So I turned around to see if the little girl was still there, and she wasn't. She didn't seem like she was aware of me.
Okay.
She was just kind of chilling, looking sad in the corner, and I felt really sad on top of being scared, and then I made sure that she was there, and then I turned over and went back to sleep. And if that happened today, that was not what would happen. I would not be able to just go back, turn
Hmm.
over, go back to sleep. If I saw a ghost chilling in the corner of my room. But in the next morning we were out. I think we were making breakfast. Mom was out. I remember Mom was out in the kitchen with us. And my friend asked me, like, what were you freaking out about last night? And I started telling her. And then as I'm telling her, it's like literally the floodgates of my memories just like opened up and I was just like bombarded, and I felt like I was being like washed over with like all these memories of like seeing this little girl multiple different times, hearing the footsteps, having these creepy feelings, whatever, you know, and it all just kind of came back to me, and it was something that I had suppressed because, wasn't being believed. So I was like, all right, well, let's not talk about it, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that was a major turning point in my life because that's when I became aware again of, dead people and spirits and ghosts and whatever,
Hmm.
things from beyond. And I mean, it wasn't just me experiencing this or you, or eventually, I mean, dad believed before, because you know how dad is. He's the conspiracy theorist and Mr. Alien Man himself. But
Yeah.
like the time he bought me the UFO encyclopedia for Christmas and then took it and started reading it for himself.
Oh, that's great. I didn't. I don't think I knew that.
Dude, that's a classic dad move. This happened like I think it was like probably around that time or like early high school. And now
Yeah.
I have done the same, not as bad. Bought presents that I know that he would like that I like, but I waited until he was done reading it, watching it, listening to it, till I like took it and
Yeah.
but anyways,
That's great.
yeah, that's David Place for you, man. He's also the bookmeister, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so Dad definitely believes before, and then I remember when Mom finally believed us. I don't remember what year it is. You might remember more, but we were downstairs. It was like a spring break, and we were building that dance platform for you so you could practice downstairs.
Hmm.
And then I think there was only Chloe at the time. I don't know if she was downstairs with us or what, but we were all downstairs working on the floor and we heard distinct footsteps going down the hallway that was like heavy, like a man's boot kind of thing, walking across, and nobody was up there.
I
And then,
forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah. I've also talked about a lot of different this stuff in therapy too.
Mm.
So it's like I don't know, we're just people here, because people in Maine didn't get to come visit my haunted self in my parents' house in New York,
Hmm.
except Liz. But yeah, that's when I remember Mom actually decided, okay, I can't really deny this anymore
Hmm.
because there was that no explanation. And I remember when we would talk about it, people being like, "Oh, your house," or like saying it can't be haunted, or what is because it's not an old house.
Hmm.
And initially, we thought maybe it was the land. Also, the proximity to the Oswego River, because we're basically just like one little hill away from it.
Yeah.
Um, and we had that stream across the street from us too. And when we were younger, I remember the salmon coming and spawning
In
up.
the stream?
Hmm. We one year we had like wicked big salmon, and I don't even know how or why they had originated or thought they originated from that stream or wherever it led to, which I think was like, I don't know, like it
Hmm.
was going back towards the school kind of thing, but
Oh,
I
that's
don't,
wild.
I don't even know where I was going with that. But the water, oh, because people, theorize that water is like a highway for like supernatural
Mhm.
beings, sort of thing. But I remember also when we went, I don't know if you did you come with us? Probably. I don't know why you wouldn't. When we went to remember we went to the Richardson Bates house and there was a ghost talk there and they were talking about like kind of ghost hunting and different things. And I remember mom went up to her with me afterwards and she was like, "Can people be haunted?" And the lady was like, "Yes, they can." Because she's like, "Well, I think my daughter is one of those people." And I think that's when we were starting to realize that a lot of that happened when I was around.
Is
You
she
know,
the first ghost hunter that came to our house?
she might have been. I think so because she was part of that group, the CNY Ghost Hunters that
Mm-hmm.
Stacy was a part of too,
Mm-hmm.
and they came. I don't know. No, I don't know if actually. I think that was a different group
Okay.
that came. Now that I'm thinking about it, because she was. I think she came with the second group, the CNY Ghost Hunters, because they made an episode. Remember they were doing that TV series
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But no, I don't think we ever heard back from the first lady or the first group of people. If I'm remembering correctly. I don't know. Mom said
Yeah.
she found the file of the Invisible Friends and was going through it. So I'm like, oh, I have one of those happening here for all the stuff that I experienced around here. A lot of it's Phil, you know, since Phil passed. But yeah.
So I have described you as haunted as well. I guess I had forgotten that mom had said that about you, but what do you think about that? Why do you think that you have experienced so many different things?
I think because part of it, especially like when you're a child, you're able to be more open to that sort of thing. But I know, like, I'm an empath. Obviously, I do have some, I don't know, like, I don't even know if I'm using the right word, like psychic slash
Psychic abilities, yeah.
psychic abilities, psychic abilities. Um, I haven't seen a lot of ghosts since I was younger because my guide said that I put what they say, oh, it's like I was covering my third eye with tape, basically is what they said like a year or two ago when I was working with Jilly Maria. But I know when Phil first saw me, because he could see people's auras, he saw me as this like brilliant white light. And that's what I kind of imagine like what spirit, like the ghosts or spirits can see that type of thing, or I think they just more want to come to people who have abilities.
Hmm.
And I believe that all of us have the ability to tap into this stuff. We're born with it, we're conditioned to not believe in strange things and other things or things that you can't explain, you know but I've always done what I wanted, marched against the grain, whatever the word, whatever the saying is.
Hmm.
Gone against the grain, but I'll march to the beat of my own drummer while going up against the grain, I guess. So I think, believing or just being open to that kind of stuff you're more want to, I don't, you know,
Attract it.
attract it. Yeah. You know, there was a ghost spirit that came to me when I lived in Greenwood here in Maine, my first place. And I don't know where she came from, but she followed me from my place, my house in Greenwood, to my house over in Buckfield after my life imploded. And from a couple of friends who have, more of the shining than I do, they kind of gathered that one, that her name was Stacy. Two, she either was like had like hadn't died right away, or maybe it was like in a coma or some kind of in between state, and that like me getting sick with the ulcerative colitis was triggering her, sort of thing. Like,
Mhm.
I've never lived on my own until I lived in Buckfield when I moved there in 2018. Excuse me. And you know, even with the ghost stuff happening, it's a little more reassuring when somebody else is around besides your 14 but ferocious, I mean, 14-pound but ferocious Shih Tzu.
Mhm.
It was just me and Anne Marie. So, but that Stacy chick, ghost, whatever, she would come up and like get in my face and get like so close to my face. And like I couldn't actually see her as in like see a form, but like I can see particles sometimes. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like if you're really tired and things start kind of turn particly, but it's like more in a form kind of thing.
Mhm.
I don't know, that's how it was. And like I could just sense her like getting up in my face, and which was not good, conducive for me trying to sleep or relax. Because I'm feeling this slightly aggro spirit in my face. And so I ended up having to talk with her. And I was like, listen, I'm sorry about whatever is going on with you. I'll give you your own space. Initially, I gave her the closet that was off of my room, and then I ended up giving her like the office, the whole office, and you could feel the
Mhm.
difference when you walked in there. It was like so much. It was so heavier. But I told her she couldn't come get up in my face anymore because I'm like, I don't like that, and she didn't after that. And then when I moved from this place into Phil's house over in Norway, I told her she couldn't follow me. I said, you don't have to stay here, but you can't follow me. So you're like, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Don't come home with me, please. So, and she didn't. I don't know if she's still there with Penny and Fred in my old house or not, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that besides the fact that, I mean, you can interact with them,
Mhm.
and I think respecting them and giving them their own space or whatever, and setting boundaries like you have to in the 3D with other people is an important thing. So I think that was one of the first times that I really did that, besides standing out in the living room or the kitchen and being like, give it back to whatever the ghost has taken
Mhm.
that time. you know um
You had said earlier that there was a male presence in our house growing up, and it seems like a lot of your knowledge isn't from being able to necessarily visually see. So what tells you that that was a male presence? Like what helps you know that type of thing?
it's hard to explain. It's just a feeling that I get. It's like what I sense. It's like was it clairsentience, when you just know things
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. um yeah, because I am a lot of times able to differentiate between like male, female, or whatever the ghost might have identified with. But yeah, it's just more of a knowing, a sense that I get, just the energy itself, which definitely felt heavier and a bit more menacing, not in a really bad way, but very kind of, it was very uncomfortable. Like I definitely would feel it a lot in the bathroom. And like when we
Mm-hmm.
were taking a shower, and I'd always be like poking my head out the shower curtain, seeing if anybody's there. Nobody's there. Closing it back up. Oh, I'm still feeling creeped out. Poke my head back out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nobody's there. You
Yeah.
know. Um, and just also with and hearing the footsteps too. You know what I mean? Like I said before, it kind of sounded like heavy male boots
Mm-hmm.
walking down the way or climbing up the stairs, the basement stairs. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's like I know it. It's what I sense. It's what I just kind of, it's trusting your intuition, which something that I feel like I struggled with that more in recent years than in the past, especially when I was rediscovering all of, these experiences I had and more were happening, and we would talk about the ghost or talk about something happening. We wouldn't be home, and then we'd get home and something would happen later that night or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Trusting my intuition and is something that I'm working on, you know. So
Yeah.
Going through and thinking about through these experiences and the for lack of a better word entities you've come across throughout these times, do you get a sense that all of them are some residual thing left over from a human that was alive, or do you think that some of them might be something else? Especially given the fact that your parents, built the house you grew up in. Some of these seem less like what I would have read or heard of as haunting experiences and more of maybe fair folk experiences. Where do you fall in all this?
I think some of the stuff can be like residual hauntings, like with the girl. I mean, because she did not ever notice that I was there. She never looked at me or interacted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of it I think would be uh more intelligent with like especially with like just the watching and the feeling of being watched,
Mm-hmm.
and not like for like that male presence that I felt. Yeah, a lot of times it was in the bathroom or in the hallway or coming up in the something definitely in the basement, but with a little girl, I would always see her in the same corner kind of thing. So
Gotcha.
I don't know if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
and I've experienced even before Phil died, like my gay boyfriend Drew, he was kicking a bucket at my place in Greenwood, and I couldn't figure out who it was or what was going on. And I also felt him in the shower, but it was a different feeling. And but I was like, "Get the fuck out of here, you perv!" I'm like, "Don't be peeping in on me." And then one of my other friends, who, like I said, has more touch of The Shining, was describing him, and I sent her pictures, and she's like, "Yeah, he looks older," because the pictures I had of him were, when we were in college or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then come to find, she was like, what she was seeing from him was that he was like motioning of something like falling off the table kind of thing. And so I just kind of like go around the house looking for stuff, and then I like look, and there is a kerosene lamp that my coworker had let me borrow from when the power went out, because rural Maine does not have the best infrastructure when it comes to yeah, power companies, roads, internet, all that stuff. Um, and my boyfriend at the time had placed this lamp on the ground, and it was had all this stuff precariously stacked around it. It was like basically in this little hole of things being stacked around it, and like it could have fallen off. And I didn't even know that was there. And then after that had happened, one of my friends had contacted me and said, "Hey, I want to go snowboarding tomorrow. Can I come stay at your place?" Because we lived 5 minutes and 15 to 20 minutes from two of the mountains, the bigger mountains around here. Well, one of them's small, the other one's big, Sunday River. And like, so, of course, she was going to stay in the back bedroom, and something could have happened.
Mhm.
you know, if I didn't get that warning. But like, I know that that was a specific person coming to me to tell me something, you know, and I like, I know if he's around or he's been around if I start saying honey bunny, because that's what he, that's what he
Mhm.
called me. So, you know, when he usually starts coming out, I'm like, oh, Drew's around.
Would you consider yourself to be a medium?
I would say a baby medium, and it's something that I am working on and developing. Um, I think I actually just made a crystal grid for that, for tapping into my tuition and, you know, expanding my skills and also just kind of stepping into my power all around. And I sent Reiki to it earlier. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I can talk with Phil, and it's like, trying to explain how it is. Like, if I'm talking with him, it's not always just like a conversation like you and I are having. But sometimes it's like I can hear things or sense kind of things in my head, and I know what he's, you know, what he's saying or meaning.
Mhm.
You know, um he lets us know he's around. He's really good at manipulating the lights. He can
Mhm.
flicker one specific light, and it's been multiple lights throughout the house, you know, on and off for a short period of time. You know, like he helped us identify, I think it was a Jasper that we were trying to figure out what it was, and we were watching because we had gotten material um for Stones and Homegrowns when we got this giant slab saw and had material out west that the guy had, you know, rock hounded and mined himself. And we had a kind of Jasper and we weren't sure what it was, and we were watching a YouTube video. One of the people they live out in Montana near the Yellowstone River, and they go hunting for that kind of stuff. And her name is Montana Rock Mom. But anyway, she was like TP Canyon, and that's when my salt lamp that was out in the living room flicked on like 3 times, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Phil, is that what it is, TP Canyon?" And it was like boop boop boop. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would love to talk more about Phil. So you've described him as your twin flame. Can you tell our listeners what that means?
so twin flame basically is when you are of the same, my understanding, what I've read, you're of the same soul, but you've split off into like 2 different people, and you have obviously lots of past lives together. You don't always get to meet them, but they just feel like they are part of you, but not, I don't know, not in that traditional sense where, you know, oh, you complete me
Hmm.
kind of thing. You know, when Phil and I first met, like I said, he had seen me as this like bright white light and everything, and we just had like an instant deep connection. We were talking for a little bit, then he was we got out of this out again. He's like, "You want to go smoke some weed outside?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I want to go smoke some weed outside." And we did, and we met Ida, my Irish Wolfhound, which was Phil's girl originally. And she stiffed me on the head and gave me a kiss, and I fell in love with her first. And Phil and I were just talking, and it was just like instant connection, you know, deep knowing of someone else, even though you just met them, sort of thing. And um, there was like so many synchronicities and other kinds of things that, you know, it was just kind of mind blowing. And then we were watching like different tarot readers, and it was like lining up with like everything that we were experiencing together. And, you know, after I moved in officially, it was May 2020, but we met in early, like mid January 2020, and I started hanging out at his house more often. So I was there a lot. But once I feel like we were spending more time together and sleeping together on a regular basis, like we both had, um, I don't wouldn't call it a dream, but it was like if you were dreaming about like a flashback of a past life of us being in ancient Egypt. And like we both saw different things. Like I saw us like sitting up high, like almost like at the top of a temple or the top, not of like the pyramids that the kings were buried in, or any
Hmm.
of that, but like kind of like a step thing, looking out over like a crowd of people. There was also some great sex scenes with silky things going on and whatever. And then he said he saw me like leading people out away from Egypt to like this oasis place. And I've always, always, always been intrigued with ancient Egypt.
Hmm.
And I feel like I've since discovered, especially since I've been on this healing and spiritual awakening journey for the past like 5+ years, like full time, a lot of things that I've been interested in the past or whatever, drawn to. Like I've always loved elephants. Wanted when we thought Dad was allergic to the dogs, instead it was actually a cigarette smoke. But I was like, "Hey, Mom, can we get an elephant? Dad can build a giant doghouse for it, and we've got almost an acre of land. That's plenty of land for that elephant, right?" I mean, in my mind, that's how it was. But since then, I've discovered that Ganesh or Ganesha, or however you say his name, was one of my guides. I've always loved peacocks. That's a sign of Krishna, which I definitely think I was some kind of I was like a Hindu in the past for sure, at some point. Um, I know that I was in ancient Rome, according to Jill Maria, and I was like a high class lady. So, you know, I've always been interested in that too.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, the twin flame thing fell with me, like with all those synchronicities or whatever happening. You would just look at me and be like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" Just in disbelief, like not believing that we had this interest or whatever. And what we
Yeah.
really wanted to do together. Was it was still a dream and something that I'm working towards, like opening a healing center, and we have land for that, and it was kind of crazy too, because like when we were both sick. So okay, back up real quick to talk about Phil. We met like in 2020, early 2020. We're together pretty much every day since then, and I the colitis was flaring up when the pandemic hit because everybody was like, "Oh, what the hell's going on? Nobody knows what's going on." And I have an autoimmune disease, you know, so I'm at risk, blah, blah, blah. I am out of work for a few months, and then Phil gets the diagnosis that he has stage 4 lung cancer. Then I go back to work and somehow achieve third tier selling freaking insurance sales. And then I'm back out of work and I've been out of work. But whole point of that was just when we moved, like when we needed help basically, and Liz and Mike, my best friends who are still here living with me, um, they moved in to help us. And there was a lot of synchronicities there too between them. We considered all four of us to be soul family because like I don't know, Phil had, his ex-wife had was from Florida, Gainesville, where Liz was from, and he had this Florida Gators like jean jacket that he ended up giving to Liz because of her connection to Florida. And there was a whole bunch of other Mike and him designed the same dream house of building it up in our mountain. Like
Hmm.
literally Phil had his and he's like, "Mike, go draw yours." Draws it. They were like almost a match. Like the
Wow.
design and everything. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was just stuff like that all the time.
Hmm.
Those are some a few that stuck out, And that's how it was with Phil and me, and we kind of built on that and called it my soul family. Like Liz and Mike have been there for me a lot. And I've been
Yeah.
there. We all met over in New Hampshire and they moved to Maine, and then a year later I moved to Maine, and now we're all together again.
Yeah.
Shout out Liz and Mike.
That's right. Shout out. That's right. They deserve a
Yeah,
shout out.
for sure.
They're wonderful people.
They're
And
very good friends,
yeah, they're now part of our family too. Our parents have adopted them, so.
for sure.
Mhm.
How has your connection with Phil after he's passed, how has that impacted you or impacted your grief, or has it?
Um, it's helped because I know that he's there, and I know that he's also was in a really good place.
Hmm.
You know, the first session that I had with Jilly Maria after he died was he was talking about the gardens and how beautiful the gardens were, and there's like all these tiered gardens and herb gardens and veggie gardens and gorgeous flowers everywhere. And when I asked how he was doing, he was like showing her he was doing a little jig, like doing a little dance kind of thing. So obviously it's not nearly the same as having your partner, the love of your life, your best friend there with you. And that's something that I've had to deal with. And I feel like I'm at a better place now with that and accepting that. But it's very helpful and comforting to know that he's still here and he has, we have a good connection. Like the first time that we went over to Mike, Mike's dad's camp over in Freiburg, which is like 25 minutes from us.
Hmm.
Mike had his GPS on, and all of a sudden, this woman is speaking this foreign language, and we're like, "What is going on?" And excuse me, I was like, "Is that Spanish?" It kind of sounded like Spanish, but not quite. You know what I mean? And then I get this like image in my head of Phil, like as if he was like sitting in the back seat, just like more of his head, him laughing hysterically and his blue eyes twinkling because he
Uh-huh.
just loves to joke around and mess around with people. And no, come to find out, Phil turned the language to Portuguese. Now, Portuguese is important and not just Spanish or another language because Mike's green Amazon parrot, Coco, when he first got her and she had to stay here in the United States because she was banned, the family was getting deported and they spoke Portuguese. And Phil knew that.
Oh.
And he had a very special
Oh.
connection with Coco because he had a blue Amazon or a blue parrot. I don't know if it was an Amazon, excuse me, a blue parrot that he loved her very much. And he could, like, it was like, he would, it's like he had bird talk. You know what I mean? He'd speak to her in this funny voice.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, Coco Poopins, are you birdie or a kitty? Kitty or birdie?" And ask her these silly questions. She would just love and fan her tail out and flash her eyes and everything. So, like, just the fact that it was Portuguese, not Spanish, besides me even having that image of Phil in my mind, like, totally him and totally something that he would do and laugh about.
Yeah, that
You
does sound like Phil for sure.
Yeah. So it has been comforting, and like I can feel him touch me sometimes. It's like almost like a tingly sensation. For a long time I felt like he was like touching me on my left side. I've seen like when I was talking like the particles
Hmm.
of people, there's a better word for it and I'm not really thinking of it, but like his kind of like particly kind of aura type thing standing near the edge of the bed. I
So
mean,
thinking about all this stuff and going through these experiences, has this uh shaped or reshaped or affected in any way how you feel or what you feel happens to us after we are no longer living?
um yes, definitely. I don't think it's just heaven and hell, sometimes purgatory. And also is um makes me have questions too, you know,
Hmm.
because it's like, well, if he's in heaven, does he come back and visit, or how is he still here, or what is he doing in between? He didn't think he was going to reincarnate, but I knew he would because he had a very large father wound that still needed some healing. But he did a lot of great work. And, went to a therapist and made friends with his therapist, and who was older than him, but they could talk about old guy stuff. Really sweet. And then and that was one of the things that I had asked like during my session with one of the sessions with Jillian Maria, and talking with him was like, well, what about reincarnating and stuff like that? He's like, oh, I didn't think about that with you know, him needing to heal the deal with him and his dad and stuff like that. So I believe in reincarnation. I definitely believe in past lives. And even before Phil, Grandma Place, when she died, when Britt and I were younger, I was in 10th grade and Britt was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
She did a lot to when she first passed, especially to let us know that she was there.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how it all works, but I do believe that there is an afterlife. I really believe in the idea that you keep reincarnating and learning your lessons until you've learned all your lessons, then you go to nirvana or heaven or wherever, some sort of paradise.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's worth believing in or thinking about, especially if you're doing all this work. Being human ain't easy sometimes, but yeah, I do have questions too, though, more of like, okay, well, I feel like he was in heaven when he was describing the gardens and everything, but then he can do stuff around here too, Phil specifically. Um, so I don't know. All I know is that I have prayed and wished and hoped for more time with Phil in the next life.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had a short 16 months together and that was it. And the majority of it, we were sick. And we definitely did the best that we could to,
Yeah.
make, have the best time that we could with the time that we had, and I remember us like laughing in the cancer doctor's office and everyone else is there is very somber and everything. And we're just sitting there laughing and having a good time. That was early on in his diagnosis when, he could still drive and was mobile and everything. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like all of this has expanded of what my concept of is what happens after we die. And I think we still have a lot to learn and to research and explore, because a lot of it's still definitely not explained. But I don't believe that when you die, you just cease existing.
Yeah.
I feel like souls are so much deeper than that. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of depth to people. And even before I was, seeing ghosts or having paranormal experiences again, I remember mom saying that I was an old soul,
Mm-hmm.
writing the letter to George George H.W. Bush in first grade during the Gulf War, saying, I think you and Saddam Hussein should play a game of checkers to see who wins the war so nobody dies. And he wrote me back. And then Grandma Place was so excited she had to call up the newspaper and they did a story. And I remember, I don't know if mom said it, she's like a 80-year-old woman in a 6-year-old body or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He did write me back and I got a picture that wasn't like a mass produced one. That was like
Yeah.
legit somebody developed it at the 1 hour photo lab type thing too. It was, yeah, she framed and put it above my bed. But
Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've had so many experiences with people who have passed on that it would be hard for you to believe that their energy just goes away.
yeah, for sure. Definitely. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah.
It's like when I pray, I don't always pray, but when I do pray, I definitely pray to Phil and Grandma Place and Drooby Booby, 'cause I feel like they are all part of my team,
Hmm.
and Grandma's been, as you know, basically like a guardian angel since she passed. Um, you know, so yeah, it would be hard for me to believe that just because they're still around somehow, and it's
Hmm.
intelligent. It's not just seemingly residual. Like I felt her give me a hug
Yeah.
after she passed when I was like really upset talking with somebody on AOL Instant Messenger, good old AIM, and I was crying, and then I just felt like this warm hugging embrace just reach like around me and give me this like full body hug. And I was whoever I was talking to, I don't remember who it was. I was like, my grandma just gave me a hug. Like,
Oh, and you
yeah.
knew.
I knew
Yeah.
it was her. Yeah, it was just such a. I was just like filled with like so much love and warmth,
Hmm.
and you know how she radiated that in life.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's no way I could believe that we just die and that's it.
Yeah. It's
There's
like we
definitely
don't
some.
we
Go
might
ahead.
not understand the mechanics or the
Mhm.
structure of it all, but it's like there's a knowing that our energy continues in some
Mhm.
form. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, just even with Liz falling through, the 20-foot fall through our deck stairs down, and she didn't even realize she was falling until she saw, the wooden steps coming at her,
Wow.
and she literally was like this far from like the spikes, the nails, the giant deck nails sticking out.
Hmm.
Because when she landed, she was like, oh, hey, I'm alive. She's like, I didn't see my life flash before my eyes, but Phil, or not Phil. Well, I think Phil was there looking over
Hmm.
her, and whoever else, probably her dad or whoever else she's got looking over her, because multiple doctors, including her orthopedic doctor, he drives past her house, so he saw how big it was. He's like, you really are lucky to have survived that. And
Hmm.
she had a partial MCL tear and a sprained ankle, some nerve damage and concussion. But it could have been so much worse. And I definitely feel like Phil and other people or angels were looking over her, you know,
Hmm.
which
It
is
just sounds like Maine is dangerous. That's
which
that's all
makes
I hear from you is Maine has no electricity, no internet, no telephones, and
Dirt
collapsing
roads.
staircases and dirt roads.
bumpy, holy dirt roads. Let me tell you, they don't know how to make freaking roads around here. I do live in Romney. Thankfully, I'm only 10 minutes from the hospital, but yeah, I mean, you want to rough it, you can come out. There's way more rural areas than we are, but it's still magical. I have a haunted doll,
Oh.
Esmeralda. She was given to me by my friend Julie, Julie Joy Tribe.
Hmm.
She's a witch doll, and she has an old lady attached to her. I believe her name is Veronica. I told her, tell me if it's not Veronica,
Hmm.
but she has a presence. She's sitting in Here, I'll show you. She's sitting in Grandma's old. Can you see her?
Yes,
Sitting in Grandma's old chair.
I do remember Esmeralda from coming to visit you.
Yeah, she got a presence. And also, I've also seen Busy here, Izzy's brother. So before I was in the picture, Phil rescued Izzy, our black cat, who we believe she's a black Burmese, not Siamese, but she's a chatty Cathy, and her brother Busy, and they used to be indoor outdoor cats. And then Busy got Phil believes by a Fisher cat, and then he died defending Izzy. And Phil and I were hanging out in the den, and both the cats are in there, Izzy and Ricky Bobby. And I just saw this little black cat, looks slightly bigger than Izzy, walk from like, okay, right side of the door frame to the left side of the door frame. go by and I'm like, oh, I think I just saw Busy walk by. And Phil had seen him too.
Have Liz and Mike experienced things as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
most
In the
definitely.
house. Yeah.
Mhm. They always feel him downstairs when they're working in the studio a lot. He's basically just sits there and watches what they're doing since he taught them how to, cut and
Hmm.
polish stones as much as he could before he died. And recently, when Mike and I were gone one Saturday, and Liz was downstairs talking with her mom, she heard footsteps, and she actually like got up and was like, "Hello, is anybody there?" And it was, I think, just Phil coming down and chat because she doesn't usually. Sometimes she chats with her mom downstairs, but I don't know. She was. I think he was just coming to check it out, and she's heard
Hmm.
his footsteps before, like in the kitchen. And I asked Julie Marie about that, like when he first passed. She was like, "Yeah, she surprised him. He didn't think anybody was home. He was walking around and stuff. And they've experienced, the lights going on and off. It's usually the three of us when that happens. So he has flashed me the lights a couple times with just me. So,
Hmm.
and yeah, you definitely want to talk to Liz and Mike. Mike could tell you about his black kitty animal thing that shapeshifts in size and stuff, but it's like a protective thing that he's had with him for a long time.
We
So,
would be happy to talk to him.
So you started out in childhood being very afraid of what you were experiencing. Has that changed as you've gotten older?
yes, I was afraid for a long time, especially, seeing movies like The Exorcist and knowing that people can be possessed by demons and stuff. And that's what a lot of what I was afraid of because it's like I felt like I didn't really know how to protect myself, didn't want to call in things. We did stupid shit. Like we played with a Ouija board in the house and
Hmm.
we did a seance a couple different times and stuff like that. And it's not things you should take lightly. But I've learned that you can work through it, you know what I mean? And realize that most of these, spirits who are still around is like they have some unresolved business or, you know, something. They want your attention for some reason. A lot of times I feel like they want help. And I would say
Hmm.
that's the majority of the stuff you experience besides like, your loved ones or
Hmm.
your guides coming in and helping with stuff like that, and it's something that I've always wanted to do is to help people, and I feel like that is a way that I can help people because I do find in myself things like that being comforting. I know it's not for everyone, but
Hmm.
um especially after like doing more of the, research and getting into spirituality and, healing and doing all that stuff, it's like, and the comment from my guides, it's like I have been making a really concerted effort to not be afraid and to be more curious about it, and open to it. And, I've put it out there with like when I did the crystal grid and set the intention that like if people are going to come through or things are come through, it's going to be good experience, I'll be comfortable with it kind of thing. So it
Hmm.
has changed, but it's scary. It was scary, especially when you're younger, when you're not being believed that you're experiencing these things, but they very much are real and are happening, even if, you know, people's logic minds don't think that something like that can happen or exist, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it makes complete sense why you shut it down. You had to create this, you know, protective mechanism,
Hmm.
to keep yourself safe as a kid. So I'm just gonna put that tape over my third eye and not experience this anymore. But that can only last for so long.
Yeah, exactly. Because they still come. I guess I do feel like a beacon sometimes, but I
Yeah.
also feel like Phil protects the house too.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So he's not gonna let anything crazy get in here. But yeah, I mean, I shut it down. I wasn't being believed. I was scared, you know, and that was a lot of the things that I did was shutting down emotions or feelings, which I have discovered, through therapy that was uh, accepted, promoted behavior on both sides of our family that was demonstrated to us. So it seemed like the easier thing to do instead of dealing with that kind of stuff, whether I was feeling scared because of the ghosts or whatever teenage angst I had going on, and just bury it down. And I really believe that's what led to a lot of that led to the autoimmune disease,
Hmm.
and also just denying what you are or what you can do. The universe is going to try to force you into a position that you have to address it,
Yeah.
and ever since that third eye, the tape over the third eye comment, I've been like, okay, yeah, I gotta unstick that. I gotta clear that shit
Hmm.
up.
Peel it back.
Yeah, go peel it back, a little window clear, just a little polish job real quick.
Yeah. I've loved hearing your stories. I mean, I've heard a lot of them before, but some were new or some were reminders. So
Yeah,
this has been a very interesting conversation for me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing.
you're welcome. Thanks for listening and
Yes.
caring.
Absolutely. And we'd love to have you back on again because I know you have a lot more stories to tell us.
Oh yes, I'll definitely come back. I could sit here for 3 or 4 hours straight and just talk nonstop about ghosts and or UFOs or whatever you want to talk about.
The
Don't.
strange, the paranormal, the unexplained, the
Yes,
spiritual. Yes, all of the
spiritual.
above.
All of the above. All the reasons people are coming here to listen. I feel like if you're into one of those things, you're kind of into all of them, or at least peripherally, anyways. They all kind of intertwine. So.
Absolutely. Definitely what we're learning the more that
Hmm.
we go down this road, that there's a lot of interconnections between phenomenon.
Yeah, so many synchronicities. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. I want more Hellier. Just gotta say that. Thanks for sharing that one with us.
Absolutely.
That was so crazy. And Melissa and I were like, "Is that a birthday balloon? Is that a birthday balloon?" We were out in the woods.
They are dropping a new documentary on the 18th of September, and
Okay.
it looks pretty unhinged. I'm
Oh
pretty
man.
excited.
It's a
Okay.
haunted place, right? Isn't that
It's a haunted thing. It's
haunted
part of their.
thing?
It's a thing that they own a traveling museum of cursed objects, and one of the cursed
Mm,
objects they acquired uh caused them to have some apparently some pretty serious and negative experiences, and this
mm,
documentary is basically from what I can tell from the little bit of that they've released on ads, it looks like it's their efforts to get rid of those issues. It's called The Unbinding. They just did a limited premiere a couple days ago, and then it looks like it's going to be, I'm assuming, streaming on 18th of September, according to a commercial they dropped today.
awesome. Okay.
Jonathan, Jonathan, for
Okay.
people who don't know about Hellier, can you tell us a little bit about like who you're talking about?
The so it is a two-season so far. It wouldn't surprise me if they at some point did a third season. I feel like there's probably a lot of material that didn't make it. Documentary series that originally apparently the first one was actually a kind of just a YouTube exclusive thing, but you can get both seasons on Amazon now. This couple, the Newkirks, Greg and Dana, they are paranormal investigators and were uh contacted by some people who said they needed their help, and it took them down this kind of a cult rabbit hole. It's very interesting, connecting a bunch of different types of phenomenon through the Carolinas, and mostly Kentucky, but some West Virginia too. And it's just, it's very, very interconnected, lots of synchronicities, and extremely well done. My bullshit detector is always on high. And I don't think that there was a single thing I saw on any of those episodes that I did not feel like was genuine and sincere. I may not have agreed with every conclusion they made, but I think they came to all those conclusions very honestly. And I get also you'll probably gonna mention this in many episodes of this podcast, but it was a big part of me kind of opening the door back to things that are, strange. Something I had walked away from a long, long time ago.
They went down a rabbit hole and we jumped in right after them, I think.
Yeah,
Yes, you
for
did.
sure.
And then we followed suit after you alerted us about said rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
oh, it was crazy. So many synchronicities, so many things. And I mean, and of course I'm a believer, I'm a seeker, but I do agree with you, Jonathan, that their experiences were real. Like they weren't making things up, and you could tell it sometimes at how distressed they were with all this crazy stuff that was happening. And yeah, I'm okay with my doll with my lady, but I don't want cursed objects at all. So, but yeah, if you guys haven't checked that out, other people who are listening, Hellier is definitely worth it checking out. And I'll tell Liz and Mike they'll be excited about that. So
Yep. Well, thank you so much, sister, for being on with us and sharing all your stories. This was a lot of fun. And we're very much looking forward to having you back to talk more soon.
Thank you. I'm excited to come back, and thanks for having me. We'll have some more spooky and strange and weird tales for sure. So
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.